Hey, Soul Questers, thanks so much for joining us for another episode of a Soul's Quest podcast. We have a very special guest today. I'm your host, Jessie. This is my co-host, Omar.
Hey, everybody.
And our very special guest is coming from us virtually.
Correct, yeah.
From Long Island. And his name is Rolando Castro.
Yay!
I thought you were going to say it with me, but that's all right.
Oh, okay, sorry.
In unison. But that's
unison,
all right.
sorry.
Anyways.
Thank
So
you for
Rolando,
having me.
thank you for joining us. We're super, we're honored. I know I said that before, but we're super honored. Are you excited?
Yes, I'm very excited.
Yeah, so are we. Obviously, you know, I'm excited. So, all right. So, Rolando, do you want to talk about who he is or no?
No, why don't we have him talk about who he is? So, let's start there.
So, what we usually do with our interviews is we are, the whole Soul's Quest, what we're about and what we're doing. And what we want to do with you is the same thing that we do with our other guests. We want to find out more about you. And so we'll just dig right in. Omar always says that I just go right to business. So I'm going to get right into business. So and there you go. So where are you from? Where were you born?
I was born in Queens, Jamaica Hospital.
Okay.
And I was just really for like about a month. And then I was basically sent to El Salvador after that. And I lived there until I was about 6 years old.
Okay.
And then I came back here, and it was kind of like, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what New York was about. And it kind of it was, like everybody else that comes here, it's like, whoa, big buildings, skyscrapers and stuff like that. So it was pretty cool, but it was kind of, a lot of not knowing exactly what was going on. And, I didn't know if I was going to be in New York forever or if I was going to go back. So it was kind of like just take it in and go with it kind of thing. But that's really, what a little bit about myself of where I was born, and how I grew up is basically, I was born here but just lived in El Salvador until I was 5 or 6 and came back here.
What do you remember about that time, that childhood in El Salvador, as a young person, having been brought up over there for those 6 years?
Amazing, grateful, and kind of like scared at the same time. It always reflects back till now, till this day. I always kind of I'm a big analyzer, so I reflect a lot on the way I grew up to the way I handled my things even to now, to this day. So what I lived over there, it was, like I said, it was awesome. But at the same time, I went through a lot of scary moments in my life where I thought that, I could have lost my life.
Okay.
And that those
can you explain to that? Because that's from me knowing us knowing your story. Can you take us through that part? Because losing your life and feeling that threat at a young age. What's the background? What's the setting for that?
Sure, yeah. My grandfather was in the military. The reason why I actually went to El Salvador was because my father got deported, and he was actually detained, and he actually went through the states down all the way to El Salvador. They didn't at that time they didn't use planes, and they would take them in trains. So my dad lived through a lot, and a big struggle through that, and of course leaving us, and well, me and my mom. And I basically lived out there with him while he worked and he tried to get his stuff to get back out here. And my grandfather was, at this time that I'm talking about, was during the Civil War. The Civil War in my country was about 12 years long. So yeah, and I was born in '86. So the things that I seen were just crazy. At first, like I said, my beginning ages, from what I remember, it was great. My mom, my grandma, always kind of was a hustler. She had her
Mhm.
store, a little store at her house, and she would cook and she would sell like chips and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember all of that stuff, and just I would actually give food to kids and let them run away with it because I knew the struggle how it was at that time. And I was also not, I didn't have Jordans. I had one pair of
Mm-hmm.
shoes for a whole year. And my mom tried her hardest. She had three jobs. She would send me money for stuff that I needed.
Mm-hmm.
But I talking about my, like, the things that I seen towards death was, I was about 4 or 5, and I was playing marbles, and I
Mm-hmm.
was in my grandfather's yard at the house, and he had made a big metal door, and
Mm-hmm.
it was new. My dad, I remember arguing with my dad because he thought that it was not a good idea, stuff like that, but he ended up doing it. And I just remember that there's this guy that was at the top of a mountain, and he had a grenade, and he threw it where I
Wow.
was at. So
Oh
what
wow.
saved me was the fact that the grenade landed in front of the door and not in behind the door. Because if it would have landed behind, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't be here to tell the story. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
when the grenade exploded, you know, the the shells and stuff like that landed on the door. I still remember this so clearly, and at such a young age, which is crazy sometimes to me. But
Yeah.
I remember that my grandma took me from my shirt and just threw me inside the house. And after that, I just remember hearing bullets just going through the house, like, just,
Oh wow.
yeah, just breaking through the because we had cinder blocks, and it was just going right through the cinder blocks into the
Oh man.
house. And I was scared because I couldn't hear my dad, I couldn't hear my grandma, and my grandfather wasn't around.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So those were one of those moments that I was just, wow, it's just
Yeah.
from one minute to another. And then aside of all the other things that at that time that I seen, like I said, it was a lot of poverty, and anywhere you went, it was death threats that, you just,
Mm.
getting in a bus and people trying to rob you, mug you. And at that time, they were even burning buses or microbuses right with
Yeah.
people in front. Like, they would rob them and then burn them. And,
Wow.
What the people were
the
inside.
people that were inside, yeah. So it
Really.
was really crazy at these times when I used to go around there. My grandfather's brother got pretty much taken out of a bus, and about 8 to 10 soldiers just unloaded on him, and that's how he was
Wow.
murdered. Um,
Oh wow.
yeah, a lot of my friends, they're not even here now. Most of them are just
Mm-hmm.
gone. Yeah, like I seen a lot of things that just people, there was no safety, and there was just no something that what we're blessed here in the States is
Yeah.
that we have
Mhm.
freedom, and
Mm-hmm.
we can call the cops, and anything like that happens out there it was just different at that time. There
You
was
Yeah.
like
no
fend for
help like
yourself.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, how did your grandfather, your grandmother, and your dad? How did they deal? What happens after that attack? I'm assuming the attack was because he was part of the military.
Well, it
Is
was
that part of the reason
just
why?
at that time, it was just at a random. You would just people would come, and the shootouts would just go on with military and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. What I don't know the reason why they attacked us, honestly, to this day, but I do know that there was times that we would have to hide my grandfather's stuff, and my grandma
Mm.
Yeah.
would, it was like a 30-second rule, and they would come, and they would search through people's houses just to find anything, and if they did, unfortunately, things would happen.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, those are the type of things that I lived at. And after that, my father and my grandma and my grandpa, they decided to move up a little bit, more away from that. and we did. They ended up getting the house that where they're actually at now, and everything's been great since then. Like I said, there's a lot of like pain, but there's a lot of also love for my country, for that country. I say
Mhm.
my country because what I lived there and everything that I saw. It made me appreciate life, but it also made me appreciate that country also. Like I
Yeah.
said, I consider it a home when I go.
Mhm.
It's like a second
Mm,
home.
yeah.
What about your friends? And you mentioned that there's a lot of friends that you had back then that are no longer alive and no longer in there.
Yeah,
When you go back and you see the families and you see where they are, how does that make you feel?
I feel
Seeing
blessed,
them.
man. I feel blessed that I got my family. I feel blessed that I'm here. You know, um, you know, it, and I feel bad for everybody that goes or is living in that struggle and is going through
Hmm.
worse things like that. Those are the
Mm,
type of things that I think about. That's just like I said. That's just the
Yeah.
way that
mm,
that country made me see things to this day. And that's how even sometimes, like, I even get mad at my wife, just like for letting the water run, because I know what it was to go out and we would have to wait sometimes with my grandma and my uncle's neighborhood. That was another place
Yeah.
like where I saw a lot of nasty things, because in my uncle's neighborhood was more like gang affiliated and stuff like that, and that's where I seen a lot of killings and stuff like that. And that is, like I said, is what made me like see that, first of all, gang wasn't for me, and I love my
Hmm.
life to not get to not go out like that, like a lot of them do.
right.
Hmm.
To choose that path.
Yes,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
Were you ever recruit? Were you ever try to be recruited by any of them?
no, honestly, I can't really say that I ever did. Um, at that time, I used to hang around with my cousin a lot, which was my uncle's son, and
Hmm.
he was very well known in the area, and that's why I was able to be around these kind of things sometimes, because obviously they could tell when you're not from around there and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Hmm.
But at
Hmm.
that time, like I said, my cousin's friends, he was very well known in that area, let's just say.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
everybody in that area knows everybody. You literally live face to face, like this house faces the other house, and
Yeah.
it's like small communities. The sections are like blocks. So you know it's that's how everybody knows each other there. So when new faces
Yeah.
come,
So
you stick out.
you stick out, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have two questions, I think. So one, so it sounds to me from what you've explained that you have a greater appreciation for life
Yeah,
because of what you went through while you were living there,
yeah,
and then seeing so much death and being exposed to that. I can only imagine that your yourself and then also your family, your grandparents, whatnot, must have lived in this state of like altered, like heightened fear, like daily.
yeah.
Did that like affect you, or did they kind of protect you from that, or what? I don't, was that sort of an underlying,
Honestly,
you
to
know what I
tell you
mean?
the truth, I admire them because there was never a moment that looked like they were scared. Like my
Mm.
Mhm.
grandma, my grandfather, obviously the military, but my grandmother is a very sh- like straight faced kind of person, like my father. People that know me always say that I don't really smile like my father, but it's like
Mhm.
that dead look that it's just nothing phases them. And I
Hmm.
always admired that, and I looked up to that, and to this day I still do, because it was I would be paranoid as taking my kids out, and we would have to. But those are the things that you do to live out there, and you have to take these risks, because if not, you don't live, you don't eat, you don't
Yeah.
provide, and these are the things
Yeah.
that That's why I'm thankful, and like I said, what your everyday job is to go a 9 to 5. there's people in other countries that are just doing worse, like they're living in worse circumstances, that a 9 to 5 would probably be a better source for them than their living circumstances, if that makes any
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it
No, it
does. It does
does.
make perfect sense,
Yeah.
and then just to be able to see that, and it gives you a different appreciation for what you have. Absolutely,
A different
a
perspective.
different
Yeah,
perspective.
definitely.
A question for you in terms of at that time, your father was deported, and your mother was back in the States. How What was your relationship like with your dad who was there with you during that young age, and then your mother who was away? How was the difference? How were those relationships?
Well,
Let's start with your dad since it was closer to you.
I'm honestly, I don't want to, like, I don't want this to look bad on my father, because it's not. It's just I didn't have my mom and my dad at all when I was young.
Hmm.
His mentality was, I need to get to New York. I need to get my son out there. I need to find a way. And it was work, work, work. And I hardly got to see him. My mom, same thing.
Hmm.
Mm.
And my father actually has, I have three, two brothers and a sister from my father's side. And
Hmm.
at that time, he had communication with his son, and his name is Marito. At that time, that was one of my closest kind of bonds that I had to a father figure, other than my grandfather,
Hmm.
because my grandfather was like
Okay.
my dad. He took me to school. He did everything that a father would do, in that sense that, he guided me. He read every day the Bible to me. And
Oh wow.
yeah, every night he would read the Bible to me. We would see my grandma. I would go with him, go get to the market, go get food, come back. His job, my grandparents' life was crazy. Like, they were up from 4 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. Like, it was that amount of hours that we used to put in. And like I said, my grandfather would get up, open the doors, go to the market, get the food, get everything ready while my grandma was, preparing everything. By that time, it was like 6. Then start serving breakfast, and then after that, you start preparing for lunch, and then after lunch, you start preparing for dinner, and people are
Hmm.
constantly coming in and out, and it was like a non-stop thing. Like, and I think
Yeah.
that's where I get that hustle from. That I just don't
Yeah.
want to stop. I just, and it's based on that, what I saw, what I lived through, and
And the work ethic
yeah,
that they
exactly,
had.
the
Mm.
work ethic that was
The
behind it.
commitment.
Because, man,
Yeah.
you got to be strong to do things like on an everyday basis, Monday through Monday. You know,
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Monday through Monday.
opening up
That's
for
crazy.
business, like it was a nonstop thing. And at that time, there was a precinct that there still is a precinct that's like around the corner. So during
Hmm.
lunchtime, all breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they would come to eat, and then, back on their shifts. And then aside from everybody else from the neighborhood that would come, you know.
So
Wow.
they run a
It
restaurant.
wasn't.
That's
Yeah, I guess you could say a restaurant to our in our here in what New York, in the states, what they would see it as. Yeah, it's like a restaurant, but it's
yeah.
really at your own, in your home place, and you section off an area
Hmm.
and you sell there, and you basically sell whatever it is that you want. And obviously, my grandma just, I don't know if it was that she liked to cook. It was just that, the hustle. Like I said, it was that was what she just didn't
Yeah.
have the store. She cooked also, and she, I guess she looked at the
Yeah.
opportunities that were out there, and she took advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
and that's making something out of nothing,
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
right?
Yeah.
It's like she took the what she had and made something from it to be able to provide for you and provide for the family, and that's
Yeah.
something that's very commendable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's big time. That's like amazing. So you come back here when or to the States when you were
Yeah.
6 is what you said, right? and you come back with your father,
No, I
or they
came
sent you back?
back, and then, well, yeah, and my dad came after. I came first,
Okay.
and then my dad came after, and this is why, you know, there was just favors that were done, and that from my dad that I appreciate so much. That is the reason why
Hmm.
he's out here, and he was able to come
Yeah.
back out here the legal way, and take that stuff
Hmm.
off his chest and be able to be here freely. It was it
Hmm.
Yeah.
was it was great, but that greatness only lasted for a little bit, because, like I said, then the life here
Okay.
was just a whole different other turn. I didn't have him here, and it was just kind of like, you got to figure it out, and just figure it out,
Yeah.
because they didn't know how to speak English that well. um
Hmm.
I was learning, and there was a lot of responsibility at that time, that, with school and keeping up, and I know it was frustrating with my parents as well. And
Hmm.
but like I said, they both of them were just 2 to 3 jobs a day. And
Mm.
I would either have my cousin, my uncle, or my grandma take care of me during those days. Like, on the
Hmm.
regular, I was like just hopping between them on the regular basis.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how were those formative years moving back to New York City? You moved down to Queens,
Man,
New York, and you had to kind of like get reacclimated to the new culture, a new way of living. How did that transition felt?
it was crazy too. It was a lot of emotions. I'm not gonna say I miss El Salvador in that sense, because I was kind of like glad that I didn't have to be worried for my life, and that,
Hmm.
I didn't have to be looking over my back. But at the same time, it was the same thing, just in a different mentality, and it was a different society. Like, it was
Yeah.
rough where I was from. I went to one of the
Tell us
baddest.
tell us about that area. Tell us about Queens, New
Queens.
York, and I'm assuming this is the early late '80s, early '90s.
Early
Yeah,
Take
early
90s, yeah.
take
90s.
take us to that time, early '90s.
Man, it was at least in my area, it was just rough, because it was like you had to be known. And if you wasn't known,
Okay.
you had a rough spot trying to get people or respect from people. And
Hmm.
uh so many things, like the one that doesn't bed crazy on me, that took a big toll on my life too, was that where we lived at was a basement. And I hated that basement because
Mm.
we had no windows, no nothing. You didn't know if it was morning or night in that place. And
Oh
the
wow.
crazy thing
That's
about it
terrible.
was that there was a lady that her name was Rosa, and she was a Puerto Rican lady,
Uh-huh.
and she had a son, and her son's name was Jose, and he was much older than me. When I was like, when I was like 7, he was already in high school. So he would fool around with me,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
like, he was really cool. He was like a young kid that just he was really, really a nice, like, not a bad kid. Didn't mess with bro crowds and stuff like that. But unfortunately, his family was just dysfunctional, and unfortunately, they were the
Hmm.
owners of that building. And I used to hear this lady scream every day, because he would beat her and stuff like that. And I'm talking about, like,
Mm.
kicks to the face, like, type stuff. Like, it was
Mm.
rough, man. And at that time, I'm like leaving guns and bombs
Yeah.
to go into hearing people cry. Like, how, like, like, how do I say this? Like, if you ever know about pigs and stuff like that, you're gonna, when you kill it and stuff like that, like, that's how it felt to me. It was like these crying for
Yeah.
sorrow that nobody can do nothing. And
Yeah.
it's like,
Wow.
it was rough on me, because I didn't know how to take it. The way that I took it was just that this lady needs help. And his
Yeah.
son or her son, once he graduated, he left. Like, he went to the military and he was out. He left them, and he
Mm.
did his own life, and he stayed there. I don't know whatever happened to him, and I'm pretty sure he did a good life for himself, but I never saw him after that.
Mhm.
And I lived in that basement for quite some
Yeah.
time until I moved to another part of Jamaica. But
Mhm.
yeah, that was one of the things that really, that aside from everything that I was facing at that time in the streets, I was facing that at night. So that was like a everything
Yeah.
day. So I felt so an entrapment, because I can't go outside that much because, you know, I used to have to, I didn't have no bus. I didn't have, like any help in that sense. I had to find everything myself. It took me a while to even get the
Hmm.
bus fares from, I ended up actually getting that in junior high. But when I was in elementary,
Yeah.
I used to have to walk
No.
about, I don't know, maybe more than 5 miles just to get to my school.
Yep.
Like,
Wow.
and as a kid, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the responsibility was on me. It was like my parents were out of the house. Like, I had to walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My grandma sometimes would help
Hmm.
me, but at that, she was, at her age, and at the same time, she had her responsibilities, that she needed to do. So, I would have to walk all these
Yeah.
things, and I got jumped a couple times. I got, stuff stolen
Yeah.
from me a couple times. I seen
Hmm.
people, like fights and stuff like that. One of my friends that actually was really close with me, Isaiah, was one day also leaving. One day we left school, and I usually would go with him. And that day that I didn't go with him, he ended up getting stabbed under the bridge. And it was like all these
Wow.
things that, you know what
Wow.
I'm saying? Like, and it was just, man, like,
Yeah.
it takes a toll on you, and you got to be strong in order to
Yeah.
get, not let these things affect you in a sense that,
Affect you.
Yeah.
That you keep
yeah.
going, that you keep, moving through.
How through all this stuff and walking to school, seeing all these things coming from one environment to the other, how were you in school and how were you able to focus in school?
That was my question.
Oh,
I was gonna ask that. That's all
Um,
right.
stop living inside of my brain.
That's the bad thing. I'm living
Great
in his
minds think
brain.
alike.
That's crazy.
It's a
Okay.
dangerous
Thank you.
place.
It is. It's crazy. I just do like this.
Um,
Great minds think alike. I like
Yeah.
that. Rolando, we'll leave it with that.
So yeah, so go ahead. How was how was your schooling? How did you focus on that and how was that experience
oh
after
man,
going through all this stuff?
I'm gonna tell you right now, my schooling was horrible. Not that I hardly went to
Mm.
school, but I wasn't there, and it was like my elementaries was like basically skidding by, and I actually got left back in first grade when because of the difficulties I
Hmm.
had with the English and stuff like that. But um,
Yeah.
that one was rough, and junior high is when I really kind of just went. It all went downhill because I mean, I literally,
Hmm.
you would sit in class and there would be kids listening with their headphones on. The teacher would be talking, and this was like what Queens was at that time in my school. There was just, the education was there for whoever wanted. If you wanted it, take it. If not,
Hmm.
I don't know if you want me to
Oh
tell you.
well.
Which I was like, I was stunned at the fact that I was passing, because I'm just like, holy shit, like, how is this happening? And
Well,
Yeah.
obviously you wanted it, right? You were there. You were doing what you
yeah,
could.
but it was just to show up. It was just like there was no
Hmm.
like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I saw what people around me were doing, and I was like,
Hmm.
is this really, like, worth it? Like, what's the point of me going to
Mhm.
school when it looks like if you're dressed like a geek, you're gonna get beat up? When you're dressed like a
Correct.
thug,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're gonna be okay. So I was like, I don't understand
Yeah.
Yeah.
it. I was like, I'm coming from a place where you don't want to be a thug because you could get killed, but
Uh-huh.
education is the key out, the way out. But here, it was like in where I was from, it was just the opposite. It was like, what? Like, you studying? Like, You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
It was like that, and it was that's why I kind of like went downhill with that after junior high, and I was like, man, you know what? Forget this school thing. This ain't for me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to survive
Now,
right now, and you know,
yeah,
the people that I was hanging around with were like, you know, not that they weren't good people, but there was a lot of freedom there, you know. And I
yeah.
had a friend of mine that, you know, Michelle. If she hears this, you know, she's probably gonna laugh. But it's one of my closest best friends that I got, and she used to have at that time like a house that her parents were split up, so mom would work, and you know, basically sometimes she'd be like, hey, you want to come to the house, and her mom would have drinks there and stuff like that, you know, bottles, and us as bad little kids, yo, we would start drinking the bottles and sometimes fill it up with
Mhm.
water. And you know what I'm saying, like we
Yeah.
were just, we were reckless, we were just, I don't know.
Mhm.
We weren't bad kids though. You know, we weren't stealing. We weren't like, you know, we
Right.
Yeah.
just having fun with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, also, I mean, a lot in that time. Again, you're coming from a place in which your parents worked so hard to get you here to get an education, to get you from a dangerous environment, but then you end up going back to an environment that is similar. So
Mhm.
you start having this disconnect between the two things. So that's something that you know that kind of like plays tricks in a person's
Exactly.
mind. What during this time was there any person um like from the school or anybody that you gravitated towards or gravitated towards you to kind of like give you, was there anybody that took an interest on you in the school setting while you were there?
Nah, man. I'm telling you, it was like, it was kind of like, I don't know, like what's the right word to say, but it was like, it was, there was no help. There was just, like I
Mm-hmm.
said, everybody was just worried about, like, it felt like, you know, the teachers were just about their money, and it was like, you, like I said, it's like if you want to learn, you know, you learn. If not, then it's on you. And
Yeah.
Mhm.
that was like the really hard part for me, I guess, that since there was no,
Mhm.
I find it in life that when there's no rules, sometimes we tend to go out of boundaries sometimes. And
Yeah.
that's
Mhm.
exactly what I
Yeah.
think I
Um,
did at that age and that state of mind. That, you know, now I regret, I should have just paid more attention in school, and I should have just focused more in the things that, but I'm not complaining, you know. It got me where I'm at now, and you know,
Hmm.
I'm not stupid, but I learned things. I learned things the harder way, like my dad used to say, and instead of,
Yeah.
you know, going the
yeah.
easy route.
Yeah.
It's learning from experience is the way that I would like to call it. Some people call it the school of hard
Yeah.
knocks, but
Yeah.
you know, it's all
Yeah.
a matter of perception.
I was going to say it's a matter. Exactly. What about, so that was middle school. So what about high school? Just sort of fast forwarding. How was high school then for you?
Oh, higher school was another one. I ended up moving from Queens to Long Island, and now
Hmm.
Okay.
you know, now I'm living in Queens. I've been in Queens now. I'm like 15, and now all of a
Yeah.
sudden, you know, I guess because my parents saw the type of life that that city life was, and you know,
Yeah.
like I said, these are the things that I always give it up to them and look up to them for the fact that they always strived for the best. So they ended up buying a house in Long Island, and we ended up moving, and that was the summer
Okay.
of me graduating in eighth grade, and I was pissed, man. I couldn't
Hmm.
even go to my dance. I was like, "Yo, we
Oh,
leaving?" Like it was cold turkey, man. It was like from one day to another. It was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, get your pack up your stuff, and we're out." And I'm like, "What?" Like
wow.
they were like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Yo, you guys didn't
No
even let
411.
me know." I was like, "How am I gonna like bail out on school and stuff?" They were, my mom was like, "Oh no, don't
Hmm.
worry, you're gonna go to school over there," and I'm just like, "What is going on?" So you know, I hated,
So how was that
huh?
different? That's a different, because Long Island is different than the
Yeah, man.
city.
I'm telling
Like,
you, I hated it. I had that like that city mug face to everybody in Long Island. Like people would look at me and be like, I just didn't want to talk to nobody. It took me a while to actually make friends in Long Island, but I just, I wanted to be by myself. I was upset that I lost all my friends
Mhm.
from there, and
Yeah.
it was okay. Actually, at that time, in ninth grade, that's when the Twin Towers actually hit too, and
Mhm.
that was at that time, and my father had just gotten the house and stuff, and that was like the
Mhm.
most dramatic thing. Other than that, it was nothing crazy. School was always kind of like that. Like I said, it was kind of, that city just had that vibe from the city that it was just like it was more like,
Not
yeah.
important.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you do in your free time during this time? In high school, where you weren't as interested in learning in school. How what do you do during your free time?
So in high school, everything changed in the sense for me that I didn't want to. At an early age, I just wanted to break free. I wanted to just make money and do things. And my main
Mhm.
occupation was like getting money and playing basketball. Like sports was my thing. And at
Uh-huh.
that time, what I ended up doing was that I this is where I actually met my close friend, my best friend, my brother, Eddie. And this is a ninth grade.
What's up, Eddie?
Yeah,
Shout
shout
out to
out to
Eddie.
Eddie. I ended up in ninth grade and I started selling candy. And I would go to
Oh, okay.
Costco and BJ's and stuff like that, and I would buy packs, like big packs of everything, and I would just sell them in school. And I started making so
That's
much
so funny.
money.
Jacob did that.
Huh?
Jacob
Oh
did that.
yeah?
Jacob. Jake did that. Yeah, in
Yeah,
high school. That was his
that's
hustle.
pretty hilarious.
But go ahead. Sorry. You
Next
just
time I
reminded
see
me
him,
of
I'm gonna tell I did a stepping stone for him.
Yeah.
there you go. I used to take him to Sam's Club and we go get all this candy. It was crazy. He used to like pull out this wad of money.
Yeah,
It
I'm
was
telling you,
ridiculous.
I
But
I used to make about 125 to 150 a week
Oh
what?
wow.
Oh my God.
In
in
high
high school.
school.
Wow.
And
Okay.
then after that,
Wow.
I ended up getting some money from that, and I ended up getting people that like had clothes from Macy's, and I started doing that. That was like basically ever since then, I've just been kind of like that guy that always has like a
Mhm.
hustle. And when I say
Okay.
hustle, I'm a hustler, but I say that in not in the sense that people think that it's just about selling drugs. I think that a hustler is a dad. I think that a hustler is,
Mhm.
a person that works a 9 to 5. I think that,
Hmm.
all of us like have that hustler in us. We just got to find it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you and I had the conversation about the word, right? I was in New York last time, about there's a negative connotation when it comes to hustler, because it has everything to do with something negative, and comes from the streets. But in reality, the term is an entrepreneur, a
Hmm.
businessman, because that's what a businessman does. It's creating something from what they have to be able to maximize and capitalize on their
Yeah.
efforts,
Right.
and that's something that's commendable. Personally, you know how I feel about the word, because I'm gonna try to call you a businessman because that is what you are.
Entrepreneur.
But I
Mhm.
understand. I understand the urban connotation when it comes to it, which is something that needs to be clear out. But that's a perfect thing, because if you look at all these entrepreneurs, they're famous entrepreneurs. Jeff Bezos was started to sell books, you
Mhm.
know, and 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 it's the same premise. So, but yeah, look, that's a very commendable trade to have
People
from an early
identify
age.
people
Yeah.
identify with the hustler, that word too, and they're
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, that's what I. And they see somebody who's successful at monetizing their
Their
ideas
efforts.
and
Yeah.
their efforts and working hard, and they respect that
Hmm.
person. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. So then okay, so just to keep like the flow going. So then in high school, you had your little hustles, you were making money, you were into sports. So you graduate from high school, and then sort of what happens in your young adult life now? What's happening at this point?
Then everything kind of got a twisted turn, and it was towards my ending of high school, beginning of college. My father ended up with cancer, with lymphoma,
Mhm.
and
Mhm. Wow.
that shit changed my whole life. And I just remember that I felt embarrassed, and because I remember that there was a principal called Gutierrez at that time, and he wanted to get rid of me. He was eager to get rid of me, and he was in all his right. He was right, and I had showed up to like my semester for only like 5 days, which was
Mhm.
horrible.
Wow.
And
Mhm.
I knew I had messed up or whatever, but I felt embarrassed because at that time, that's when I knew that my father had cancer. Because my mom, he called
Mhm.
my parents up, and he was ready to expel me, and my mom started crying and was like, "Yo, give him one more chance," you know. And she was like, his father got cancer, and it was like kind of like one of those slaps in the face, like kind of things that it was just like, "Yo, what the am I doing?" Like,
Yeah.
and I think that it was just these gateways that I just wanted to breach, because I didn't want to I didn't want nothing to do with school. I didn't want I don't know, man. I was lost at that time. And
Mhm.
seeing him suffering, just it brought me down. It brought my mom down. My brother was young at that time. He was a kid, but
Mhm.
it was seeing him going through that struggle was just bad enough. And you know we just I tried my best to just after that to straighten my life out, and just focus on school, and really, that's what made me, like, in reality sometimes I laugh, but I used to say, like, I'm going to school for my parents, I'm going to school for my parents. And I really was at that time. I just wanted to stop hearing this,
Mhm.
"Yo, you're not gonna be anybody" kind of thing, and you're just like,
Mhm.
what's gonna be of you. So I did it. I went for business at first, and business administration, and
Mhm.
then after that, I dropped out of that, and then I ended up going to liberal arts, and then after that, I dropped that, and it was just like I felt like I was confused with, like, I had a brain fog, and it was just like, I had to really sit there and
Mhm.
think about what I really wanted to do, what I liked and stuff like that. And then after that, I found graphic design. After I found graphic design, it was just everything after that changed. My whole
Mhm.
mentality changed. I wanted to, like, do good. Um it was just it's what I like. And
Mhm.
I just felt like um kind of like a gates, like some gate doors opened, and it was just like I felt like that was the way to go. And ever since
Okay.
then, I've been doing what I've been doing, and there was just no more turning back after that. And now I thank them, because if it wasn't for them, I would have never found this, probably, and I would have never got an education. And maybe my
Yeah.
life would have just been different now.
So
Yeah.
your parents pushing you to do this, or the fact that you had this mentality that you're going to school for your
Yeah,
parents, that's interesting. So you were able to go and you got your degree. And then what's interesting to me is because a lot of people really end up going to get a degree, and they don't really know what they want to do, and they just go and they just get, like, for example, they go and get a business degree, but that's not what they really wanted.
Mhm.
But you had that presence of mind to pause and sort of like really take it and like to think about, what do I like, what do I want to do with my life,
yeah,
Mhm.
and that's interesting because a lot of people don't do that. They don't
Yeah.
have that ability to do that, you know what I mean? So that's interesting that you found something that you're passionate about and you're still passionate about,
Yeah.
which we'll talk about later. But
Mhm.
we were talking about that with another interview,
Yeah.
actually.
Um. I asked you before about your relationship with your father throughout all this time, and you mentioned that um, he's going through now the cancer, and they were really working hard. What about your mother? Can you tell us a little bit about your relationship with the
Yeah,
mother
of
during this
course.
time? You spent like the first time the first part of your life away from her, and then the second part when you came here, she was always working. So how was that relationship?
It was it was a little rough. A lot of up and downs. My mom's always been a very strong lady. Sometimes I laugh because I feel like she's stronger than my dad in that sense. Like she's ready for war, and you know, it it was kind of hard. She was always rough on me because I was the oldest, and
Mhm,
I like her mentality was I'm gonna be rough on you because you need to be able to handle shit when you get old, kind of thing. And
mhm,
I
mhm,
respect that. At that time, I didn't. I understand why she was like that. But now I see, because I see now as a parent, I see now as not only a father, as a worker that works a 9 to 5 and does like his side, my side business that I do, and it's just I see why sometimes there was frustration there. I see why,
mhm,
because sometimes you would ask things and you would get an ugly response, and you'd be like, "Yo, like, why are you upset at the world?" But you know, I
yeah,
understand now the difficulties, and mind you, what I went through was nothing compared to what my parents went through, and that's why
mhm,
now as an older person, I think about that, and even at my younger age, like I said, because that's something about me that ever since I feel like how people tell you, oh, you got an old soul. Like I feel like I
mhm,
feel like I wasn't born with an old soul. I just feel like what I lived through just made me now feel like an old soul. Like I'm in my 30s, mid 30s, and I feel like I'm in my 60s, like thinking about certain things that
mhm.
I probably shouldn't even be thinking about now. But the reason why,
What are some of those
Yeah, what
things?
is that?
Yeah, what are some of those things that you think about now that you think you shouldn't
like
be?
death and stuff like that,
Okay.
and health and all these things that as a youngster, you're like, oh, I got health, I could do this, I could do that, and then you start noticing, you're like, yo, and the things around you. Like I said, I'm a big observer. I observe everything. I sometimes I even
Mhm,
feel, my wife has illnesses, and just like in the past episodes, you guys were talking about lupus and stuff like that, and my wife,
mhm.
you guys know, and these are the
Yep.
things that
Mhm.
Mhm,
sometimes I look and I'm like, yo, she hasn't even done half the things that I've done to my body, in not in a bad way, but just like drinking at an early age and doing stupid little things like that. And she's been a person that's
Yeah.
been
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
at home, and and she gets sick like that. You know what I'm saying? Is These are the things that I think about. These are the
Mhm,
things that I'm grateful for. These are the
mhm.
things that I look in every day. And every day, believe it or not, I get up, and my first thing when I'm on my way to work is to think I'm gonna say God, because like I said, religion does play a role in me, but the higher above, right? I just this
Mhm.
universe, whatever it is, this energy that we feel, and it's inside of us. I think I kind of just like I do a prayer out to the world. It's just like
Mhm.
to keep those people that are in hard times, above, that don't have a plate to eat, that are struggling right now, that are getting in
Mhm.
military war crisis. Like I think about that every day, and I just wish that the universe would give them at least their break every day, for at least, you know what I'm saying, to feel sane for a little bit.
Yeah, reprieve.
Yeah,
Yeah.
these are the type of
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
that I
To
think
be at
about.
peace.
And it's just like I said, it goes
Mm-hmm.
back, reflects on El Salvador, and it's just because I'm grateful for my life, and I know that there's worse things out there than what we see out sometimes for the regular, everyday Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, I definitely want to explore more about Rolando's life, but I know that we have to come to an end
For this first
for
part,
this
yeah.
first part, that is,
And
for
we
the
have
first
a
part of your interview.
and we have a lot to dive into on the second
Yes,
one.
we
There's a lot of
definitely
questions
do.
that I personally would like to know and ask
Yeah, definitely.
from you.
Want to do some reflecting. So we're going to end at this point. We thank you so much for joining us, and please make sure that you catch us for the next one. Check us out at asoulsquest.com.
Goodbye, Soul Questers.
I never say goodbye. Sorry.
Bye, guys. Thank you.